miss location specifically a whole lot. I mean, it was a nice park, but it was more the location being, Shamong Road, busy, the right size space, far enough, like even the far enough away from the road and everything's important when it comes to not being so close that you can hear any trucks driving by and stuff like that goes into the factors with opening a float center in particular. Right. So I felt that Lansdowne could have been an issue.
I've run into that actually at yoga studios in the past. Like I've been to a couple studios that are, in the second floor of a Century Home or something along those lines, and big old windows that are single pane, blown glass, and it's all you can hear is the street traffic. Very frequently, all you can hear is the street traffic. So you're starting to like get in the zone, and it's okay if you're doing like a flow. Yeah. But as soon as you're trying to really have that concentrated time or that meditative time, it's distracting, very distracting.
Yeah, and so far it works out well. We do the wellness retreats here on Sunday mornings now. We've been doing it once a month from January onwards, and I'm not here because it's a ladies only sort of private retreat thing, but it's fairly quiet on the road, and so I hope it's not too distracting. Like this room's not the quietest because it's the one that faces the road, but most of the time, even everybody, I think maybe I'm just hypersensitive to it too.
I think so, because it seems pretty chill right now. Like I don't even hear a lot, and we're talking about drive time right now. Like, this is good. This is quiet.
That's true. And then, so I'm here. I try to take a day off each week, but it doesn't always happen. And
you meditate so much, you don't need a day off, right?
I mean, there's a lot of balance that goes into it. Yeah. So.
I'm a big believer of like, for me anyway, I find going to work is like going to play.
Yeah.
I don't watch the clock. I've been in positions in the past where I'll like watch the clock all day, and it's like, okay, how the heck do I get out of here early? Like, what can I do? Like, what's the craziest idea I can come up with to get out of work early?
Oh yeah.
And now I find it's the other way around, where I have to keep an eye on the clock because the day will be gone. And next thing you know, it's like, I gotta go. I have to go see this person. I have to go see that person. I've only given myself 3 minutes to get down the road here. Or, it's the other way around now, because I enjoy my job so much and the people I work with that it's like, I need to watch the clock for the other reason so that I don't just get lost and get carried away and miss out on things.
That's a good introduction in. So we've got Janet Di Bello on today. Is that how you say your last name?
Yeah, you got it. Not Diablo. Although I'll answer to Diablo. Yeah.
Do you get that? And so you're actually probably one of the first people that came through the doors of Flow Spa, I would say, before the walls were even up.
I remember, and it's crazy seeing it now. Like, just there was so much steel and cement and wires, and it was nothing like this.
Yeah.
Nothing like this.
Yeah, but so I'd say we've gotten to know each other fairly well, but you are sort of a rep for Bell Media for me, and we've had a good friendship develop through that, and so it was time to ask you to be on the podcast because it's what we do around here.
Why not? It's my first time.
Yeah, and also a chance to come in and float and check that out. But so let's jump right in. So working for Bell Media, you love your job.
I love my job. Absolutely, yeah.
And so it's what exactly is your title, or what's sort of the things that your job entails for you?
I'm a broadcast and digital account executive. I like to make it fun and say I sell air, basically. But what I do is I work with all sorts of businesses and help them develop their business and tell their story and get their message across and find the right consumer to send that message to. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so how did you get into that role?
Oh my goodness.
What's the journey look like? Because you were just saying.
Do you want the Coles notes, or do you want like the super long story?
We've got time, so whatever comes to mind that really stands out.
I was working at a really great retail job. I love my job, and I connected with who's now my manager through that spot.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to give you the condensed version. And I was in college at the time. I was a single mother at the time. I had a 5-year-old daughter, and I was working retail. I was going through school, and I was going to school for marketing, and I really didn't even know what marketing was when I started at Fleming College here in Peterborough. And then throughout my time at this retail location, I got to know my now manager. And when the opportunity came up to do a placement, she was, you should do a placement at the radio station. Like, I think you would love it and you'd be a great fit. And I was like, okay, like radio sounds cool. I'm good with that. So I did actually a placement doing reception at our station in Lindsay, Bob FM. And I was writing commercials, answering phones, and I kept seeing these people like come and go throughout the day, going for lunches, seeing people coming in to see them. And the whole time I'm writing ads, answering phones, I'm like, that looks kind of cool. Don't really know what it is, but it looks cool. And yeah, so I finished my year at school, and then it was summertime, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do this summer? Like, am I going to go back to my retail job, or am I going to try and get in at the radio station? And at that time they were going through some restructuring, and in the back of my head I had this belief that like, okay, it's not my time to get hired. Like, there's too much going on corporately. You know, this isn't going to happen for me. I was 26 years old at the time. Everyone that I worked with were real adults, and like, it wasn't my time. So I had applied at a couple other places for some promotions jobs, and throughout that, the program director at that station in Lindsay was like, you know, we have a summer cruiser job. We want you to do the cruiser. So I withdrew from everything else, and I started doing the community cruiser. So I was out and about in the cruiser, shaking hands and kissing babies, and, you know, supporting not-for-profit events, supporting events that were paid if they wanted just the station presence there to help promote what was going on. And I was doing that kind of stuff. So I was on the radio now. So I went from at a desk to on the radio. And then I learned some weekend on-air stuff. They taught me like what buttons to press, what buttons not to press. No radio experience whatsoever. And I was like, okay, like, I'll take it. And then it was coming to the fall, and I was like, okay, summer cruiser's almost over. I'm not going to get a job again. I had this belief in the back of my head that it wasn't for me. But I was asked to cover the Peterborough cruiser at that time. So Country 105 and Energy 99.7. And I remember, and it's the craziest story. My boss doesn't remember, but I've told her quite a few times. So I was covering this station cruiser for the weekend for the Orono Fair, actually. And I remember thinking, like, Country 105, like, that was at the time Country 105. Now it's Pure Country. But I was like, that's like the bee's knees. That is the coolest station of all stations. And I'm going to be on that station this weekend. And oh my God, like, imposter syndrome going through my head like crazy. And then I just kind of flipped gears, and I was thinking, like, wouldn't it be cool if they offered me a job? Like, I walked in and my boss was there, and she's like, you know, we want you to work here. And I had this like crazy minute of a daydream in my head. And when I got to the station, that all basically happened. Somebody had left, and my boss came in, and she's like, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm covering the cruiser. And she's like, the timing's amazing. And she pulled me aside, and she offered me a job basically right there on the spot.
Wow.
Yeah. So it went from like major imposter syndrome to like daydreaming, and then literally being asked to take the job right there on the spot the same day I like had that daydream. So it was pretty cool. And you know what though, when I took the job, it was 7 years ago almost, I had no idea what the heck I did even then. Like, I just took this cool job that I saw people coming and going, and people coming to visit them and going on lunches, and I had no idea what the heck I was supposed to do when I took the job. So yeah, it's been a interesting journey of learning what the heck I do. Yeah, basically.
Very cool. Before we got rolling, and before your float, actually, you were telling me that you spend most of the day with your phone in do not disturb mode. And so I know, you know, from our communications and everything, and even we sort of geeked out on it the first time that I met you.
Totally.
with different, you know, different things. And I think that was when I suggested you check out Tim Ferriss, I believe, as well.
And I've been geeking out over Tim Ferriss, listening to his audiobooks over and over ever since.
And so it sounds like you've got a lot of the tips and tricks of I don't know if you want to call it productivity or whatever. What are some of the big things for you that that you really incorporate that makes your day work so well?
Yeah. Oh, a couple game changers for me, definitely. We talked about this, I think, when I saw you at the Power of Success conference, was batching my emails. That was a big thing for me. So I did take a tip in the book that, suggested downloading this app Zobni, which is inbox spelt backwards, onto my computer. So I did that, and it managed my Outlook to basically tell me when were my peak periods for incoming mail, outgoing mail, all that jazz. So I was able to determine, which times a day would be the most productive times for me to batch my emails. And that's been a huge help for me because my job is crazy, go, managing a bunch of different things at once. So batching emails have been a huge lifesaver for me because I don't always keep my Outlook open now, and I'm not constantly interrupted. And essentially I've done that with my cell phone too. Like, it's always on silent. Don't get me wrong, it's typically in my hand or really close. So I'm habitually checking it.
Yeah.
But I'm not interrupted by it. I don't let people interrupt my day like that. On the other hand, I am in a sales position. So I know if there's something going on and I need to have my phone on for a certain reason, I do leave it on. But the sound of it annoys me now. I don't even like hearing it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like hearing my husband's phone. Like, if his phone's going off, I'm just like, do you mind, like, put that on silent? Like, I don't want to hear your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because it definitely is something that, interrupts that workflow and even the flow of it. The central topic of the FlowCast is talking about the flow state, where you get into that sort of optimal state of consciousness, that peak performance. And it sounds, even like you said, with losing track of time in your job, that's even, one of the classic sort of signs that you're in a flow state for a lot of the day. And tech is causing a lot of issues for people with getting into flow and staying into flow, because those distractions, I think the number is 23 minutes or something, when you get a ping, or you're multitasking, going off and looking at something other than what you're immersed in. It takes you 23 minutes for your brain to get back into the zone.
And that's just like, that scares me, because when I first started my career, I used to, one of my coworkers had suggested to me like a rule of 10. And it was basically, if something came into your inbox and you could deal with it in 10 minutes or less, do it and get it out of the way.
Sure.
So that's what I did for years. Probably about 3 or 4 years, I was rocking the rule of 10. So I was constantly multitasking, being interrupted, completing that task, going back to the other task. And that's how I was working. And it wasn't, and the numbers don't lie. And it wasn't until I stopped doing that and kind of realigned my priorities and batching things and keeping things on silent that I started performing at my best. And that's revenue wise as well. Once I started consciously not multitasking. Mind you, I'm human, I'm 32. I still catch myself frequently, like trying to do multiple things. I have 2 kids, like it's natural, but I think at work, to get into that flow, I'm consciously reminding myself from time to time, like,
cool,
stop, do what you're doing.
Yeah. What other tips, because it is something that takes some discipline and some, I'd say, self-awareness too. What kind of things can help somebody get started in that, in doing that more for themselves?
For me, it wasn't committing to too much at once. So it's like with a diet, you don't want to diet and exercise and everything all at the same time and quit smoking, and you're just not going to be successful. It's 21 days that the body needs to actually, create a new habit. So I think that I didn't put too much pressure on myself. And I gave myself time. I did one thing at a time. So I started by downloading Zobni and checking the analytics each week to just kind of see what that looked like. And then I started, I didn't commit to checking my email twice a day right away. I would check it 4 times a day.
Sure.
I took email off my phone, like the app. I can still dive in through Safari when I really need to and I'm on the road all day. But I then took email off my phone, and I did that for, 30 days to see if that worked for me. Then I would go down to checking my email 3 times a day. And I'm just kind of doing one thing at a time, baby steps, really. And now I find that I'll go on sales calls and I'll be out seeing clients for half the day and I'm okay with it.
Cool.
Like I'm no longer freaking out, right?
Yeah. Because that's a lot of, that's one of the things that, we're big. One of the main themes, or one of the themes of the podcast that we like to talk about a lot, is that digital minimalism, and sort of reducing your being controlled by tech. Mm-hmm. It's okay to have tech in your life and all of that, but you've got to be the ruler of it rather than the other way around.
It is the coolest tool. I love cell phones. Mm-hmm. I love so much about them. And I have this conversation with my husband a lot, and how, you used to wake up in the morning and read the newspaper. Well, now you wake up in the morning and you're on your phone reading the news, right? The consumption's changed. You used to watch TV as a family every night. Mm-hmm. Well, now you're seeing families that are all sitting there on their devices and the TV's off. Mm-hmm. So it seems like it's so much consumption of cell phones, even though it's just us consuming different media differently and it's all in one place, right? But where I struggle, so I'm trying to definitely regulate myself, but I have kids.
Yeah.
Right? I have a 12-year-old daughter, and trying to teach her how awesome it is and how great of a tool it is, mm-hmm. but at the same time, responsibility regarding it as well, and not to get, sucked down the rabbit hole of TikTok and apps, and, being conscious of her friends even taking photos with her because her friends can post those photos. And mm-hmm. that's where I'm really starting to see the struggle, is trying to teach, tech responsibility to the younger generation. I'm not ready for that. I'm just teaching myself control, right? And now I'm trying to pass on the controls. So
for sure. Yeah. A great book that I'm currently reading that I think is a really nice solution to it is 24/6. It's one of the most popular. The cover is very simple, but it caught my eye. It's one of the top picks from last year for chapters.
Okay.
And so it's really good. Essentially, the concept is so.
I'm going to download it before I drive home and listen to it now.
The concept is to take a tech Shabbat, so a day off from tech each week, and, it becomes this whole family thing. So Tiffany Shalane's from a Jewish background and doesn't really practice the religion, but she has taken a lot of, at least at this point in her life, she's taken a lot of the lessons of that Shabbat that she grew up with, which I
think is great. I love that. Yeah.
And turning it into this tech Shabbat. So no screens essentially for a full day. And it's
television too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they do it from Friday night to Saturday night. So, Saturday night, once again, screens could go on. Although I think sometimes they go out to the movies.
Okay.
Either way,
but that's a different way of consuming. You're doing something together as a family.
They're doing something together, and then they discuss it afterwards as a family and all of that. But phones are off for that time. They take their sheet of paper with their itinerary and maps and everything, and just.
My kids are going to hate that I was here today hearing this.
But so it's really interesting. She kind of writes it. I like the way it's written. There's nothing a whole lot new as far as the science goes behind mm-hmm. why we need to reduce tech, but that's okay because she writes it more in a memoir style. She's got input from what her kids are saying, what her husband's saying, and it's really neat to see that her 12-year-old daughter is talking about how, she's able to recognize how frustrating it is when her friends are glued to their phones because she's got this day off from it.
My daughter doesn't have a phone. So this is where she recognizes her frustration as well. Like all her friends are on TikTok, all her friends have cell phones, and she doesn't.
Yeah.
So she, does dabble and has fun with the apps and whatnot, but I can totally relate to that.
There's actually a section in the book where she talks about the debate with her husband about when their first daughter got a phone. So that's some interesting stuff. You might be able to pick
I'm all over that. All over that.
From it.
We had fun actually before the Lindsay Fair, because my daughter was at the age this past year where she wanted to go with a few girlfriends. But I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm ready for this. So we went and bought her a cell phone.
Oh, yeah.
We did buy her a cell phone. We bought her, I don't even know the name of it, like a Nokia black flip phone that snaps really good when you close it. And then my husband we went as far as turning it around to take a selfie because it doesn't have a reverse camera.
Oh, yeah.
So he turned it around to take a selfie and made a picture of her mom and dad, basically the screensaver of this phone. Now she only gets it when she's like at a babysitting gig or out with her friends and not in our care. And she gets her flip phone. So cool. I'm kind of a mean mom that way because she's not then inclined to open it up because...
Yeah. It's funny because that's the same thing that this family, like they started their daughter off with a flip phone
learning
too.
T9, doing it the hard way, just like we had to, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, I'm all over that. I really like that idea. I've recently taken an idea from my coworker again about like having some tech control in the house, and we've limited. So my oldest daughter, she really likes television, so she doesn't get television now throughout the week because we started seeing her commitment to her homework starting to decrease. And so she no longer gets TV during the week, just on weekends. Yeah. My youngest really liked the iPad. But we were seeing, behavioral stuff with her, like wanting to be on the iPad all the time. So now she doesn't get the iPad during the week. So we have put some restrictions on it. Yep. But I've never thought about all of us doing it. Because on the weekends, my husband and I, we still have our phones. Yeah. Right? I never thought about all of us doing it.
Yeah, no, it's worth checking out. That. I've always been a fan of trying to have the minimalists have a podcast. I don't know if you've seen that documentary on
I have,
Netflix.
yeah.
They've got a podcast and they talk about their screen off Saturday. I like the idea of a screen off day. I've struggle with it lately because I kind of need to know what's going on.
Well, you run your own business too, right? So as does my husband. So it would be tricky. It would be tricky.
Yeah. So there's challenges, but there's also ways that you can still. I'm sure there's ways you can implement it, even if you have situations like that. But it's interesting, right? Because you study marketing, and that was one of the other things that we really got into. We've connected a lot with is sort of in all these conversations around marketing and stuff. And so what's like how do you find that balance yourself with consuming things? You've got to know what's going on. I mean, referencing TikTok is very, very timely, and also I think
I'm pretty hip. Like, come on.
I'm pretty sure we talked a bunch about Gary Vee when you were here. So,
my conflicting feelings about Gary Vee, but yeah.
I definitely have conflicting feelings.
Yeah, I absolutely love some of his content, but I just, from a marketing perspective, disagree with some of his like ways on how to put the content out there. Yeah. But I didn't always have balance, I wouldn't say, with it. Like it used to be, I was constantly on my phone, constantly going. It's only been probably in the last few years that I've taken the time to be more aware of my consumption. Yep. Because I used to, after I floated, you had said how sometimes, you find it inspiring for like ideas with business. And I used to be like that all the time. My drive to work, my drive home from work, like I was constantly strategizing and thinking about, my next cold call or my next prospect or my next client meeting or a creative breakthrough or, where I could get some new business. And I think I was consuming probably a little different than the average person because I was hyper aware of any kind of marketing that was going on. But I did have to take a step back because, like having a phone, I was always on. And, I was always talking about business or look at that billboard or look at this or listen to that radio ad or, oh, that was a good ad or look at this, like anything, print ads, digital ads, like constantly, or, oh, they have a new sign up. It looks fantastic. Or, oh, their sign doesn't match their menus and it's silly. Or the inside of the restaurant doesn't represent the outside of the restaurant. And it drives me nuts because the synergism isn't happening. Like constantly. And over the last few years, I've been more aware of it because I was working 24/7. And when I floated today, and you had mentioned about sometimes, finding it inspiring that way, I had an aha moment because I didn't think about work. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about, okay, you know, I have this campaign coming up. It's kicking off May 2-4 weekend when we have increased traffic from the GTA. Like, how can we message? That didn't happen. And that was really cool for me.
That's great.
To have that like time out and to not be thinking about work. I loved that.
Awesome.
I love that.
Yeah. So that's, and you know, I was kind of explaining to you because we don't often talk about floating on the podcast just because it's, you know, there's more to it than just that. But I do like to dive into the conversation when it presents itself. And, you know, for me, it's not that I go in there with the intention of having any sort of business ideas. It's because you let your mind go. And of course, right now, my life's fairly consumed by business, so and running Flow Spa, so it just happens that most of the ideas that come out of my head are creative things surrounding the business.
See, maybe it shut me up for once. Like, it really didn't go there.
No, that's good. That's great. That's but it also, I find it to be just so refreshing, because you get this complete hour of, you know, stimulus reduction, sensory deprivation, that it really recharges you, because you were sort of wondering, am I supposed to feel all, you know, loosey-goosey, relaxed and everything, which is very common, but the other side of it is it's like turbocharging your brain again and getting you sort of boosted back up like a power nap. I think you were
I was bouncing off the walls. Like, I was like ready to go out of my, after my, what I call it, truck driver nap, like ready to go.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, the other thing could have been, I don't know how much it went through your head that the podcast was going to be after, but that could have impacted things too. Maybe. I definitely think so. I try to limit my exposure to the customers beforehand, because I'm always super passionate about it. It's I don't portray the typical like spa, you know, there's that stereotypical spa sort of vibe guide, and I have a hard time doing that.
Good for you, though, for being aware of how you present yourself and being aware of how people perceive you, and that maybe you're not perceived as being that typical spa person, and that your energy could change the float experience for someone, because that's a lot to be aware of. I think that's really cool that you're aware of that.
Yeah. I think it, I mean, it's even impacted me on the flip side, going to the float centers that I sort of went and checked out before opening this place. And I knew if it was either I had to go in, get the orientation and float. Otherwise, if I spent too much time beforehand talking and everything, I'd be overly energized and have a hard time.
Well, were you super passionate about it then too? Yeah. So that's obviously, it's like if I went into another radio station and, you know, I found a rep and we started talking about a client that we had in common and great ideas, and, you know, we would both start getting super hyper and bouncing off the walls and like, oh, we should do this, we should do that, we can make it amazing. And,
absolutely.
That's very cool. I need to get me a Apple. Do you get text messages and all that jazz? Do you like it?
I do, because I don't use it for a lot of its intended purposes. So this one, I've had this one, it's actually, I don't know, 5 years or something.
Oh, okay.
So it's really outdated. It doesn't keep up with the pace of the newer phones and everything, because they stopped updating the software. But I only use it for timers. So I set timers, you know, for the customer floats. Notifies me of texts and phone calls, which I like, because I usually keep my phone on silent as well, and so I don't normally notice. Not that there's anything that's urgent, but it does also ring the spa phone number. Like, I get it on my phone, so that one's more important to know that like somebody's phoning the spa. And then the other one would be we've got a motion detector at the door. And this will notify me if there's motion detected. So if I'm cleaning the rooms, it's kind of like my cheat is that I've got like this buzz on my watch, so that I know.
And here I thought you just had spidey senses. The jig's up. We got ya.
So I like it. I definitely don't use it for all of the different intended purposes, but I keep it very simple and it works well for that. But yeah, so we're talking about this energy thing, and something I really wanted to get into because I haven't had the chance to sort of congregate with anybody else that was at the Power of Success seminar. And so I really want to get into that because my number one takeaway from that, so even to kind of the question that I want to sort of ask is what's sort of left a lasting impression. And so mine was definitely the sort of energy control thing. So, that was really big with Tony Robbins was the keynote speaker, the main thing, the main deal. But it was noticeable throughout everybody because they all wanted us getting up and jumping around and everything. But Tony's the one that kind of actually described it and put it into place as to why we were doing that. And, it's all about maintaining and knowing and monitoring your energy levels. And that one, not that I hadn't known it before, but the way it was actually, I guess, we demonstrated. We had to follow along. And I left that 14-hour seminar or whatever it was.
It was a long day. It was a very long day. I
left it with just as much energy as I came into it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. I was on the other end of it. I felt like I wish Tony was a little bit earlier.
Sure.
I love him. I've listened to his books and read his books and watched his Netflix specials and all that. But I found that it was so late in the day that for me, by the time it all finally happened, I struggled. I did. Because it was, for me, I was geeking out so much with Gary John Bishop and John Gray and Molly Bloom and Rachel Hollis. Like, the mom in me was going nuts there. So,
sure.
Molly Bloom, I didn't know who she was. That was a surprise for me. JT Fox, a new name for me. I've never seen anything with him before either. So I just felt like I'd consumed so much that by the time Tony came out, I wasn't able to give it my all. So totally on the other, like, the content was incredible. I was able to hear what he said and kind of dissect that. But with everything that I had learned that day and so many aha moments and so many takeaways.
True.
By the time Tony came out, it was like I was emotionally drained. So I'm on the other, I'm totally on the other spectrum of that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't feel that I had...
Well, you were also like underneath him. Like, he was basically sweating on you. So that's the thing. I didn't have Tony sweat like energizing me throughout the whole evening.
But I don't know. I liked most of the other guests. I was definitely sort of, I guess, conserving myself for Tony. I didn't know going into it. I was a little naive about the whole, it's kind of that like structure where that's the intro level one where you get sold to go to something else. I wasn't super impressed by that.
It disappointed me.
Yeah.
It did disappoint me from time to time.
Now, had you been to this before?
No.
Okay.
No, I have friends that did last year, I think it was, that they did it. So the hard sell or soft sell at the end of each speaker, I was like, I didn't love that. That kind of devalued the whole experience for me a little bit.
Yeah.
But I loved the speakers. And there were some speakers that I was like, okay, you know what? I could for sure see value in going to their conferences. But others I was like, really? Like, you got me really, really excited.
Yeah.
You're going to show me the big tip on how to get rich with a passive income, but it's only going to cost me this much money.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a bummer. But so many good takeaways. Like, it was emotionally... Did you end up signing up for any of the seminars? Because I was this close. I was like this close to signing up for the financial one.
Were you?
I was, yeah.
Yeah, it was...
Which is probably the biggest... It would have been the worst one, but I feel like that's a whole industry and world that I'm not familiar with. And that may have been a good...
What's that with the sort
just
of...
stocks and investments and, aside from real estate and, assets, like to actually jump into that type of investing. That interests me a lot.
Sure. I no, so I actually it worked out well time wise. I think I even told some people that were around me. So I very quickly learned my rule number one in business, which I shall not deviate from, is to never make a decision on the same day that it's presented to you.
Okay.
And so that's something I stick to. And so I didn't know who now I forget his name.
I can't remember
already.
his name either. I follow him on Instagram, but I can't remember his name.
I
Sure could Google it and find out.
I've seen him once since then somewhere, but I didn't know who he was, which was kind of a red flag because I've done a lot of reading into personal finance and everything. So not that I'm the most experienced, but I've got enough. I'm well versed enough to handle my own.
I have 2 audiobooks under my belt. That's about it. So.
Yeah. So I hadn't heard from him, or I hadn't heard of him. So that was I wasn't totally convinced that he had the right answers. And
have you heard of JT Fox before?
I hadn't.
Okay, me either.
And so so and I haven't heard of him since either. So that's
I do only because I follow him on Instagram.
Do you?
Yeah. So now I'm consuming the info.
Yep.
Nothing life changing for me.
So I was curious. The finance guy, I think his book, I think he's got a book that's on Goodreads. So it's funny, I dove into the people that I hadn't heard of, and I watched Molly's Game after that.
Oh, as soon as it came on Netflix? I didn't watch it right after. I waited for it to come on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I kind of wanted to start like an underground poker thing. Like after I saw this badass girl up on stage looking incredible with this really cool story, I was like, I can do that. Like I can totally do that. I can start a poker game. I got like a pink Texas Hold'em like poker kit, I think, from when I was in grade 9 or something like that.
Yeah, it was her. I liked hers the most because it was, storytelling based. She did a good job with actually telling a story and not trying to sell us on something. And
did she try and sell anything?
No,
I didn't think so.
She didn't even ask to go check out her book or the movie, but that was kind of the thing that you may want to do afterwards.
Soft sell. She snuck it in there with a little clip and that.
But that's her story to tell, and she, she had those 3 lessons or whatever, however many it was, but it was good information, and that was that. And so I haven't read the book version because I watched the movie first. And the book, a lot of people say that it's very drawn out.
Okay.
So I haven't read it yet, but I may still.
The movie was so exciting, I don't think I could take a few steps back now and, consume it on slow-mo. I don't think I could do that now.
Fair enough. But I looked into JT Fox, and a lot of people say, there's a lot of scam alert stuff with his thing.
I could see that. See that. He gave that vibe to me. Gave that off for sure.
Yeah, so I don't quite... it was, red flags there.
I like the content, but again, it wasn't anything that I haven't heard anywhere before.
Yeah.
He just presented it together in a certain way, right? It wasn't anything new or life-changing.
Exactly. And then, and then the finance guy, his book's got pretty good reviews. There's a book, but I haven't bothered checking it out. And then I didn't really dive too much more into him. Anyway, that was it was a lot of stuff, but I found.
So what about, was it John Gray?
John Gray's The Men Are From Mars.
Yes. What did you think of that?
I like that one a lot.
Have you read the book before?
I hadn't, but I know a lot about it. I've heard of it. I wouldn't say I know a lot about it. But
I had recently read it too, so I listened to it. I'm an audiobook person all day long. I have the hard copies because I like having my special collection, but I love it. And I did go to the VIP. Were you at the VIP lunch?
Yes.
Okay. And I did have the opportunity to talk to him. And because my husband was also interested and he read the book too. And he did take the time to say, have you read the second part? And I guess there's a second version. And I said, no. And he said, that one's better.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, okay, I haven't done it yet. So there's another one. So 24/6 and the other John Gray book.
John Gray book. Cool.
2 on my list now.
Yeah. I liked his information and presentation and everything.
Gary John Bishop, what'd you think of him? The Scottish guy?
I thought he was hilarious.
Yeah, good.
I didn't know who he was.
Really?
Before maybe a month before, because the only person I knew going into the the seminar was Tony Robbins.
Okay.
Really, other than I knew the book Men Are from Mars.
Yeah.
I knew what that was, but
I wouldn't expect you to know who Rachel Hollis is, because she's like mom gang.
Yeah, I didn't really know who she was either. So I kind of checked out some of the people, got a feel for them, and I read through one of Gary John Bishop's books and really enjoyed the content. It was very short and sweet.
Easy reads.
Yeah.
Easy read.
Yeah, so I was looking forward to him, and I laughed like the entire time.
Oh, yeah.
It's hilarious.
I love his directness.
Yeah.
Because what he says isn't game changing. He's just direct. It's obvious. It's that keep it simple, stupid. Like, hello, wake up. Like, just stop. Like, it's what you need to hear sometimes.
Yeah.
And his delivery was hilarious.
It was, yeah.
It was hilarious. He started doing some cool stuff on his Instagram, too, where he's posting videos every day now. Oh. So he has desk calendars as well. But now, like his merch, but now he's posting videos every day where he's super up close. And, like, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Obviously. Doesn't give a, you know what.
Yeah.
And he's just up close and, like, gives, like, a quick 20, 30-second motivational thing, and that's it.
Oh, okay.
I love it. It's awesome. Every day, you wake up and go to consume Instagram, and there he is.
Yeah, he had a course on Creative Live that I checked out after the seminar, and it was okay. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, I didn't even tune into the whole thing. It was one of the ones, you can probably check it out as well. Creative Live is Chase Jarvis's platform for online learning around creative stuff. And there's a free episode of one of the one of the whatever topics that airs each day. And so I was tuning into this one because it was the live one. I'm like, oh, I just saw him, so I'd like to check this out. It wasn't something that I would probably pay for.
Do you think he's just extra cool because of his accent?
Yes.
Yeah. It's
Absolutely.
like, I want to listen to you.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for me too.
Yeah.
It's not too often that you see somebody come out with like a thick Scottish accent besides like, I don't know, an actor. I'm trying to think of like Gladiator guy. You know, it's not too often you see somebody come out with a thick Scottish accent. So it's like, I'll listen to you. Yeah. I can listen to you.
For sure. And so actually something that I've been curious about with a lot of people lately, and it kind of ties into, you didn't pull the trigger to go towards any of those advanced quote unquote pay for these additional seminars. What's do you have, and also because of, I think Tribe of Mentors was one of the books that you really digged into. Are there mentors in your life or coaches? Are you into that or not? What are your thoughts on that topic?
Oh man, I've had lots of mentors. Yeah. I have. And I don't think that I've ever, with the exception of one, I don't think I've ever taken the time to say, you are my mentor.
Right.
Or entered into a formal mentorship. Yeah. Where, they offer me something and I offer some value in exchange as well. I don't think I've ever had that. I'm so open to it. Mm-hmm. I'm so open to it. There is somebody I work with in another market that definitely mentors me, and I joke around that person's my mentor, but there's never been anything where it was completely discussed of value being exchanged and no upfront contract in terms of what we're going to exchange. Right. Would love to have one though.
Yeah, like somebody, like a coach that you're accountable to,
yes,
kind of thing?
Yeah. And you know what? I'm lucky. I am so lucky. I have, with all the clients that I work with, I have some of the biggest boss men, people in this community, in this region, or in other regions that are clients of mine. And, I sell radio, I sell digital. But at the end of the day, I'm curious. I am so freaking curious to learn more about their business and really dive into that. And I've grown to have some really strong relationships with some of these owners that are, man, they know their stuff. Like they know their stuff. And so I feel like I'm like almost constantly in a mentorship. Like I learn, I ask for feedback from clients sometimes, and what they'd like to see. And I'll say, I do things X, Y, and Z sometimes, is that something that works for you? If it's not, what do you want to see?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm open to changing or learning or tweaking behaviors for them as well. And I've learned a lot of just being curious. So I guess kind of, I don't have a formal mentor, would love a coach where there's value exchanged. But in a sense, I have a ton of them. Right. Like I'm not going to name names, but I got some pretty badass people I get to work with that I learned so much from.
Yeah, that's super cool. It's like, it's similar to I had this concept of virtual mentorship a couple of years ago, and it's similar to the same that too. You know, you get so much value. I'm curious. I don't know. It's just something that's been going through my brain a lot lately, and I'm curious because we hear about, you know, these different people that had their mentors ahead of them. Warren Buffett had, I'm blanking on the name now, Graham, I think, that wrote the Benjamin Graham, I think, that might not be the name. Anyway, you know, a lot of these people had mentors or coaches.
Do you think it was like a formal coaching relationship or a formal mentorship?
I don't know. That's the key.
Because my boss was an amazing mentor for me too. Like
that's kind of the thing I'm curious about in a lot of these things, whether it was a formal relationship or whether it's something like looking back on it, people are like, oh, that was my mentor.
Yeah, like looking at everything I have.
I don't have the answer. That's what I'm trying to like figure out.
Do you think we're almost, I don't want to say overvaluing, putting too much pressure on the idea of having a mentor, like that it needs to be, or a coach, that it needs to be a relationship where there's stuff exchanged and it's formal. I know it needs to be on a screen and they're holding us accountable. Do we need that?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, because it's you know, there's a lot of different people that sell themselves as coaches these days, and so I'm wondering if it's their marketing is getting into my head as that's how it is. You pay somebody and then that's sort of the transactional thing. There's that accountability, but I don't know. It's something
I feel like too, though, like if you're curious, you're going to learn.
Yeah.
Right? If you're asking questions, and it's hard to ask questions sometimes. Like it's definitely hard. Like even to have that upfront conversation of like, you know, do you think you could mentor me with this?
Right.
Because I don't know if there's like one end all be all mentor.
Well, I don't think there can be, because you've got to learn so many different things.
Yeah, and people specialize on so many different things, and man, that would be expensive. Like if you had to pay for every single relationship that you had where you were learning something, like that get pretty freaking expensive.
Yeah.
I like the idea of it, but I'm wondering if we put too much pressure on it. Because if you're asking the right questions and you're surrounding yourself by the right people, I feel like people are going to answer your questions and help you and want to mentor you.
Yeah, that's a good answer. It's a great answer. Yeah.
I feel like I've been very lucky that way. But I also, on the other end of things, I've been shut down hard. Like I'm in sales. Like sometimes people don't want to talk to me, right? Sure. And I can't take it personally, but there have been a good chunk of relationships that are awesome.
Yeah.
And in all sorts of different industries. I'm not, you know, partial to any particular sector. I've learned spiritual things from people that, you know, sell trailers. I've learned, you know, organizational skills from people that own coffee shops. I've learned about how to eliminate so much detail from people that make meat sticks. Like I've learned a lot from a lot of different people.
For sure.
Listening and asking questions.
Yeah. It's a great point. It actually comes back to the other thing that...
Have you had a mentor? Sorry. Like anyone in particular that stands out?
I wouldn't say no, not that stands out. I more so once again the sort of virtual mentor thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got people I will call quote unquote coaches, you know, particularly in strongman. Mm-hmm. Never like a formal sort of thing, and I think you learn from each other too. So it's not that there's necessarily one person that's higher than the other. So it's
yeah. I like that. You learn from each other.
Yeah. And that was, one of the other things that came to mind with after seeing Tony Robbins was I asked myself the question of, would I go to that again? And I don't know that I necessarily would, although there was a unique energy to the experience. All the information, I feel I wasn't the right sort of person to be crammed into an auditorium full of people to learn. You can get all of it from his book, Awaken the Giant Within, which was written in 1991.
Yeah.
All of the same information, which is kind of cool to me because he's saying the same stuff, which means, at least for him, that's really what stuck as his story.
Yep.
But also because I listened to and I consume so much of his content, the stories, you probably, if you've listened to a lot, you knew the punchline.
It was almost like hearing a comedian that's still doing the same bit. Right?
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's where I was okay of losing some energy by the end of the day, because I have consumed a lot of his content in the past. I was familiar with his stories. I knew that he was going to come out, doing what he does. Like I kind of knew that. So I agree. I don't know if I would do it again.
Yeah.
But because I'm curious too, I question myself. I'm like, okay, what's going on behind the scenes? How scripted is it? How many times has he said it that way? How many times is he, does he walk down the aisle, 3 times this way, then on purpose this way, then that way? Like, there's probably a lot of behind the scenes stuff that go behind putting on those productions.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was kind of starting to question the authenticity.
Interesting.
And I feel like he's very authentic and was authentic back, Awaken the Giant Within, that kind of stuff. But I'm wondering if he's just told it so many times now that it's kind of lost its oomph. Unless you're somebody that's seen him for the first time or experience, like if, when you first experience him, I feel like it's like, wow. So if that was your first Tony Robbins experience, and you've never read a book, like that would be life-changing, like absolutely life-changing. But I don't know, the energy was incredibly high. I still had great energy, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But I saw people that were like a few seats down from me, a few in front of me, a few behind me that had much more energy than I did by that time of day, right?
Yeah.
So I was starting to like question though how everything worked behind the scenes.
That's interesting. I never thought of that.
I was super, like I'm a little bit psychotic that way. I was like, okay, is he supposed to walk that way? Does he always walk that way?
Interesting.
Because there are so many. It was a big production too,
right?
Like, the giant screens and the cameras,
the security guards that stayed within 5 feet of them.
The people that were crawling along the ground, like to make sure that
that nobody got too close or jumped out. That's
all got to be pretty scripted, like and set up and structured and whatnot. So I was fascinated by those things. Yeah. And I feel like I didn't have a chance to really engage in his energy. Oh, okay. So I don't know if I was tired by the end of the day because of all the stuff that I've heard and learned, or I was fascinated by the theatrical end of it. Yeah. Because it was pretty cool. Like his clapping and I just wanted to like do the Tony Robbins clap with him. Like Halloween. There you go. That's like the best Halloween costume, Tony Robbins. You just go around all Halloween. You got your ball cap and everything like that.
I could pull that off really well.
100% you could. You're welcome. I'll let you know a little closer too and remind you.
Is there anything else that you want to like talk about? I think everything that I sort of wanted to touch on we got to, but
I feel like I'm curious with you because I looked at your book collection here. Yeah. And we have a few things in common. I know that you probably consume a lot more than I do. What is it that you want to learn more about? That maybe, like for me, it was like stocks and investments, and I've only got a couple books under my belt. Like, what interests you that you want to learn a little bit more about?
It's a good question. I would say a few weeks ago, or at the start of the year, it was definitely around the concept of forest bathing.
Tell me about that.
so and now I've got a couple of books that have scratched that itch.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
So forest bathing is I forget. I would mess up the actual Japanese term, so I'm not gonna try to say it. But it comes from this Japanese term, which is essentially getting into nature as a way to, I guess, bathe, so not
like physically cleanse your body, or emotionally?
More so emotionally
Okay.
and mentally cleansing.
Okay.
So there is a lot of power behind getting into nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so a couple of the books that did kind of satisfy that a little bit for me, the one that's sitting right there is Brainwash.
Mm-hmm. I saw that.
There's a chapter in Stillness is the Key that covers it. And also a little bit in 24/6 actually touches on, she actually does use the term forest bathing. So there's some pretty interesting research behind all the benefits that nature does for us, and it can even be as simple as plants indoors, bringing more of the nature indoors, or just the fragrances like essential oils actually activate the prefrontal cortex and help to sort of target our brain to be more reduce stress, reduce anxiety, reduce blood pressure, getting into nature itself.
So give me an example of forest bathing. Is it going for a walk? Is it that simple? Is it meditation in the forest? Is it rubbing bark all over your skin and like wafting the smell of pine trees? Or
yeah,
what is it like?
So there's nothing that stands out as being the necessary protocols. I think in Brainwash, they recommend getting into nature at least 30 minutes per week. And
that seems low.
It does seem low, but they're really, it's a very simple protocol for getting people started into a lot of these different wellness things. And they're asking a lot of people, there's a diet component, a movement component, there's the nature component, digital interactions, relationships, and empathy practices. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. And so I think they keep it simple. My personal recommendation is as many days of the week as possible.
Yeah. Really.
And I think there's a definite difference between just the indoor plants. Not that I notice if they make a difference to me. They probably do, but actually getting outside, without the audiobook or the podcast, or even
taking Snapchats or photos. Or,
yeah. Now, like something that I've been into for the last year is photography and videography, and so a lot of the times I am practicing that hobby when I'm going out into nature. Because
on your cell phone? Or
no,
actual
with the camera. Yeah, I no longer like taking photos on my phone because the quality and everything is massively different.
Yeah.
Even with it's funny. I don't know. Because a lot of the photographer YouTubers will do those comparisons between an expensive camera versus a phone, or versus an inexpensive camera. And at first I couldn't get it right, but very quickly I started to recognize those things that make the image quality that much better on a professional camera. And once you see it, you can't go back. It's funny. You can still make excellent photos with your phone, and I still do if it's the only thing I've got with me. But
that's how I feel when I hear a radio ad that isn't like top-notch quality.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, it's terrible. I'm like that if I hear audio, I get a little.
So yeah, I scratched the forest bathing itch, I think. What else?
You scratch your itches fast, because holy crap, I'll get one and I'm like, my cycle's a lot longer, I would say, where it's like, oh, I'm interested in learning about this. And
I think it's because there's not a whole lot. I don't know. There's not a whole lot to learn about it. I'm sure there's more that you could go super in depth, but there's just, there's a few things, and nature, the simple answer is nature improves your health and well-being. So,
and you know what? I feel like that's going back to like the Gary John Bishop thing. Like, it's simplicity. It's so simple.
Yeah.
Like, bring it back, go outside. Like, it's very obvious and in your face, but we just forget.
Yeah.
Right?
But there's also things that I think, that have a longer term sort of impression upon me. Learning about photography and videography is nearly infinite as far as what you can learn. And so that's something that, that I've been studying and learning about for a full year.
Wow, good for you.
Or business is even a better example, because you can never stop learning there.
Oh, it's... Yeah.
And so you kind of chunk it down into what you're going to learn about now. It's whether it's the startup phase, what you're going to do for the first little while, and then now the question, the next kind of thing coming up is there's a book by the name, Crossing the Chasm. Like, what do you do when it starts to reach that point of mainstream and it's no longer the early adopters? So that's something that's going through my head a lot, and there's some books on my shelf to dive into that, because that's kind of where Flow Spa is at, I would say.
Well, fortunately, I don't anticipate people will be floating on the internet anytime soon, so I think you're good there.
Yeah.
You're good there.
Yeah. That's...
You said you had a couple of rules that you kind of live by in business, maybe. I don't know if business or personal or both. And one of them was you don't commit to a decision the same day it's presented.
Yes.
What else? Do you have like a top 3?
That's definitely rule number 1. Are there any others? I would say, I guess another one that like I like a lot is that always be learning. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I identify a term that came up. I don't know who said it first or where I saw it first, was the idea of being like an infinite learner, and that just resonated right away with me. So that's another thing for sure. Is and that's, I don't know, that's why I like doing my own thing, in business. You've always got to be learning and growing. And so there's the other thing is the growth. It's not about being stagnant or whatever. Life and everything, meaning, is all about growth, right? And then that ties into the flow state, because you've got to constantly be pushing yourself to stay in the flow state.
Okay, so do you learn one thing at a time? Do you stay in the flow state with what it is that you're learning? Do you read one book at a time? Do you go into flow with how you consume what you're learning?
Not always.
Okay.
Because I think, I don't know, I read quite a few books, and so
I know you do.
And so I've started to realize that I do like to stick to one book sometimes, and then there's other times that I like to also dive into multiple books, because I realize the more that you learn, the more that things start to network together and weave together into this larger picture of how everything works.
Is that why sometimes it comes across as seeming like, oh, I've heard this before, I've heard that before, it wasn't new? And it does. You start to really see the synergy between what you're reading or what you're learning.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And obviously, a lot of books or concepts will touch on the same thing. Even as that example, it was kind of a pleasant surprise that several of the books that I've picked up lately are all talking about forest bathing, because it's this thing that each person's kind of drawn to as well.
Now, the law of attraction, every book that I pick up for the next little while is going to touch on forest bathing.
It probably will.
100% it's going to.
Yeah, either that or sort of another thing that's really, being prevalent in the discussion is that digital minimalism, or being sensible about your interactions with technology and everything. And so, I sometimes try to stick to one book, but I also don't always, because another thing that I'm I'm hearing a lot from, Tim Ferriss, and he was talking to Ryan Holiday recently, and Ryan Holiday's, I would say, my number one favorite author lately. He's just awesome. But it's thinking about how many books you have left to consume in your lifetime, and
that's exhausting.
And so I don't find, well, part
Do you
of
speed
it,
read?
No, I don't.
Have you tried it?
I have tried it.
Okay.
Multiple times.
Okay.
And it's not for me.
Not your jam?
No. I do listen to audiobooks on like 1.7 times speed though.
Hey, I sped it up a little bit, like not too long ago. I was like, I'm going to try and be super efficient with this. And I did speed it up and it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I feel like because I'm an audio person, I like the inflections and being able to consume it that way. And so without the inflections, when you start to speed it up, you miss that stuff.
Fair enough.
Totally miss that stuff.
It's interesting. Even with podcasts and stuff, it depends on, like, listening to Joe Rogan, I cannot do it at 1 time speed.
I don't listen to Joe Rogan like on a good day, so not the person
Fair
for
enough,
that.
fair
Do you
enough.
reread books?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Do you want to be a mentor?
Yes, I already have.
In a formal, like, mentorship relationship, like, that we're not sure about?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. I do it for free for a lot of people because I get so much joy out of it.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. Not entirely sure if that's the route, but it's something that's why I'm asking these questions a lot, I think, because I'm trying to figure it out.
I'm going to start saying, because I always joke around that I give unsolicited advice.
Yeah.
I'm going to just say that I'm a mentor now
Cool.
instead of just offering unsolicited advice all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And so yeah, I don't know, the basically Tim Ferriss and Ryan Holiday, their thing about the books and how many books you have left to read in your lifetime, it scares them. And so I have a hard time letting go of a book that I'm reading because it's just, once I feel that you got to finish it it's weird, but I'm getting a little bit better because you can't stick to a book that is not resonating with you.
Nope, give up, right? Don't waste your time. Was that a Tim Ferriss thing as well?
It was
4-hour work week.
Yeah.
I think that was.
Yeah.
4-hour work week. If you go to a movie and you're not feeling the movie, who cares that you paid for the movie? Yeah. Get the hell out. Don't waste your time, right? Yeah. Don't sit through it because you feel like you need to. If you start a book, you're not enjoying the book.
Yeah. But he also...
Don't suffer and read it all.
The other thing with the 4-hour work week is something that I struggle with is, and I think I'm a little bit better at it now, is the just-in-time learning versus just-in-case. That's an important part of the 4-hour work week structure.
Can you refresh me on that? Sorry.
Yeah, so it's, a lot of, and Tim talks about this a lot too, is reading as a form of procrastination is an acceptable form of procrastination because it makes you look like you're smart and you're reading a book and you're learning, so it can't be slothful or lazy. But in his, especially in the 4-hour work week structure and trying to be as efficient as possible with your time, it's all about, you don't batch consume information before you need it. So he calls it just in time learning versus just in case learning.
Right.
If I'm reading a book on, I don't know, because I actually use all the information, so I that's why I can apply it without it being just in case learning a lot of time. Actually, I don't have a good example of just in case right now for myself because I try to apply it all.
Yeah, I don't remember that from it. One thing that I am interested in... I think it's
there. I know he talks about it a lot, but probably. I think it's in the 4-hour work week as well.
I want to learn a little bit more about virtual assistants.
Oh, yeah.
That seemed pretty cool. Like, that's one thing probably I've applied a lot from that book into my day-to-day. Like, obviously tweaking it for what fits for me.
Yeah.
But the virtual assistant thing is something that I'm like, I feel like that could be really handy. Really handy.
Yeah.
If it got to the point that I had something that was a passive income, yada yada, where it would work, or business or something like that. Like, that interests me big time.
That's a super interesting topic too, because you can have virtual assistants that are within the same country as you as well too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, there are people that are doing it all over the place now. So it's interesting. I yeah, I don't know. I'm not there yet because it feels scary to let go of things like that.
I definitely am not because of that reason. But I'm starting to hear of a lot of like real estate agents that are doing it. And having virtual assistants that'll like call back any leads that they get on the website and stuff like that. They'll call them back right away. The virtual assistant will, and try and set up a meeting for the agent and the prospect, and they'll go back and forth like that, or via text message. Like often when you respond to an email inquiry online or a text message and you get an automatic response, it could be as simple as taking that off your hands. But again, then you're not the voice of your business.
Right.
And somebody else is representing you.
Yeah, I guess it depends on, Tim's very diligent about how he structured it, right? To have scripts on what kind of answers and stuff. It's an interesting topic actually, because we're transitioning to a new system for our like booking software. And
already?
Yeah.
Wow, good for you.
And it's funny because the thought goes through my head. I'm not sure about the answer, but was I sold on something that I don't need versus is it actually something? And I did decide. I took a week, so I did.
Hey, you didn't buy it the first day. That's okay.
But it actually comes with if we miss any calls, it comes with a text robot.
Okay.
That will actually respond. And
do you get to create the script that comes from the robot?
Yeah.
Great.
But it'll see, you can actually text to book an appointment and stuff. So if a call's missed, it says, "Hey, it looks like, can I help you?" Blah blah blah.
I love that.
And then it's like, were you looking to book an appointment? Press 1 or whatever. It'll show appointment times, all that stuff. I'm hoping it works out well.
So it's kind of like a virtual assistant.
It is very much.
Totally.
Yeah. So
I like that idea, and I'm starting to find that I'm doing more communication via text. So even when I started in this industry 7 years ago, it was a lot of face-to-face stuff with clients. And now that I find I'm doing a lot of texting with clients, is my commercial scripts, audio, like everything via text message. But I'm also being somebody that wants to text as well to do business, because I'll text my insurance broker, my bank manager.
Interesting.
They'll also text me like, this is the way that I'm doing business now with a lot of things. The massage and chiro place I go to in Lindsay.
Oh yeah.
They will text me when they have a cancellation, and I can take the cancellation right then and there.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it because then I'm not being interrupted. I can do it, I guess, at my pace, but it seems a little more personal than emailing, in a sense.
Sure. So I'm hoping that the new system's got a lot more text stuff involved.
Good for you. That's a great idea.
Which I think it will be. Yeah, because even though, once again, we're not sure if we love or hate Gary, but Gary Vaynerchuk talks a lot about how text messaging is the next wave of being very powerful, as far as email marketing being less effective now, and you got to get to text, and this system's going to have a lot more text stuff involved, so I'm kind of looking forward to that.
I feel like a lot of people are already doing that too.
A lot of people are.
Yeah. I get business texts all the time.
Yeah. They're sort of
sales. Usually if it's sale at a store, stuff like that, I get texts. But I still get a lot of emails. However, I'm very aware of going in and unsubscribing.
Oh, yeah.
I will take the time to unsubscribe so that I'm not wasting the time to open those emails.
Yeah.
And being tempted to buy things.
Yeah.
Because I do like buying things.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, where can people find you? Or do you want people to find you?
No, I don't actually.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. You can definitely find me on LinkedIn, Janet Di Bello. I have a pretty strong presence on LinkedIn. I like to post my thoughts, and
I don't even know if I've got you on
I
LinkedIn.
Know, that's embarrassing now that I bring that up.
I'll definitely follow you.
I love LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I feel like it's kind of the new Facebook for me, because I'm able to still read about things and learn about things, but it's things that are more oriented to what I do.
Sure.
And I like to share stories, success stories and crappy stories,
Cool.
Where I've seen marketing work, where I've seen it not work, where I think that it's going sometimes or not. And yes, I follow Gary V. He has quite a strong LinkedIn presence as well.
Yeah.
Love LinkedIn though. Definitely Janet Di Bello.
I'm on there a little bit, but I don't know if I've got it figured out the way, because Gary talks about how it's got extremely good organic reach, and I don't know if it's really doing much for me, but
yeah,
I
you
still
really
like
need
it.
to post.
Oh.
Post. And
Yeah.
again, the organic thing, I don't know. I don't really check my analytics and all that jazz. I subscribed to premium for a couple months.
Yeah.
Because I kept hearing premium, check out premium. I checked out premium. I'm not really looking for a job, so I don't know if I need premium, right? And I'm not prospecting really through LinkedIn, so I use it for more of a platform like a Facebook for business. And
I hate prospects through LinkedIn.
me too. And I panic. I don't know. I don't want to open it, and I don't want to like not open it. Like, do I archive it and then I look like I never open it? Like,
yeah.
So if it's a real person, I'll definitely talk to you on LinkedIn.
Sure.
It's the fake ones that I don't like talking to.
Yeah.
I got double dinged today with an email and a message from someone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Intense.
I archived it. I think that was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Definitely I can get used to doing this after work.
The podcasting or the floating?
Both. Yeah.
Both are fun,
Go
right?
float
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
hang out.
Yeah.
It's a great space you have. Really great space.